Imagine finding out your own flesh and blood, the boy you raised from a tiny baby, has gone and taken every last dollar of your hard-earned savings. That's what hit me like a ton of bricks one rainy morning. And what I did about it? Well, it shocked the whole family silent. Let me take you back to how it all started. I'm just an old lady now, 72 years young, living in a small house on the edge of town with creaky floors and a garden full of tomatoes that I tend to every day. My name's Eleanor, but everyone calls me Nana Ellie. I've got 3 grandkids who come over for cookies and stories, and a cat named Whiskers who thinks he's the boss. Life wasn't always this quiet, though. I spent 40 years working at the local diner, flipping burgers and pouring coffee for truckers and families passing through. It was tough work. My feet would ache something fierce by the end of a shift. But I scraped together every tip, every extra nickel, and tucked it away in a savings account. That money was my safety net, you know. $5,000, built up over decades of saying no to little luxuries like new dresses or fancy vacations. It was for emergencies or maybe to help the grandkids with school one day. I never touched it, not once. Until that day, everything changed. It was a Tuesday, I remember, because Tuesdays are when I bake my apple pie for the church group. I was up early, humming an old tune from my youth, when I decided to check my bank balance online. My grandson had shown me how to use the computer for that. Bless his heart. I logged in, expecting to see that familiar number staring back at me. $5,023.47 to be exact. But instead it was zero. Zilch. Nada. My heart dropped right into my stomach. I refreshed the page thinking maybe the internet was acting up, but no, it was gone. All of it. I sat there staring at the screen, my hands shaking like leaves in the wind. Who could have done this? The bank? A hacker? But deep down, I knew there was only one person who had access to my account details. My son, Robert. Robert's my only child, 45 now, with a wife and those 3 grandkids I mentioned. He wasn't always trouble, mind you. As a boy, he was sweet as pie, always helping me in the garden or fixing things around the house. But life got hard for him after his dad passed away young from a heart attack. Robert started working odd jobs, but he never stuck with anything long. Then came the gambling. It started small. Lottery tickets, then poker nights with friends. I'd hear whispers from neighbors about him owing money here and there. I tried to talk to him, but he'd brush it off with a smile, saying, "Mom, it's just for fun." A couple years back, he asked if he could link his phone to my bank app, just in case of emergencies. I said yes because, well, he's my son. What mother wouldn't? But now, looking at that empty account, I realized he'd used it not for an emergency, but to feed his habit. The transactions showed transfers to some online betting site. My blood boiled, but more than that, it hurt. It hurt like nothing else. I didn't cry right away. Instead, I made myself a cup of tea, chamomile to calm my nerves, and sat at the kitchen table staring out the window at the rain pattering against the glass. The house felt emptier than ever. Whiskers jumped up on my lap, purring, like he knew something was wrong. I scratched behind his ears and thought about what to do. Call the police? That would tear the family apart. Robert could go to jail. And what about the grandkids? They'd lose their dad. Confront him directly? He'd probably deny it or make excuses like he always did. No, I needed time to think. So I picked up the phone and called my sister, Margaret. She's 2 years older than me, lives across town, and we've always been close. "Maggie," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Robert's taken my savings." "All of it," she gasped on the other end. "Oh, Ellie, no. That boy, what are you going to do?" We talked for hours that afternoon, going over every detail. She wanted me to march right over to his house and demand it back. But I wasn't so sure. Deep down, I knew this was a cry for help. Gambling had its hooks in him deep, and yelling wouldn't pull them out. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't sleep, tossing and turning, replaying memories in my head, like the time Robert was 10, and he saved up his allowance to buy me a necklace for Mother's Day. A cheap little thing with a heart pendant. But I still wear it sometimes. Or when he graduated high school, beaming with pride, promising to make me proud. Where had that boy gone? I decided to dig a little deeper. I went to the bank in person, dressed in my Sunday best to feel a bit stronger. The teller, a nice young girl named Sarah, pulled up my account and confirmed the transfers. "Mrs. Thompson," she said softly, "these were authorized from your linked device. Do you want to file a fraud report?" I hesitated. "Not yet," I told her. "Give me a few days." On the way home, I stopped by the library. Yes, I still go there, even with the internet, and borrowed a book on gambling addiction. I read it cover to cover that night, under the lamp in my living room, with a blanket over my knees. It talked about how it changes people's brains, makes them chase losses, lie to loved ones. It broke my heart all over again, but it also gave me an idea. Maybe this wasn't just about the money. Maybe it was a chance to save my son. I started piecing together more of the puzzle. I called Robert's wife, Lisa, pretending everything was fine. "How's everyone doing?" I asked casually. She sounded tired. "Oh, Nana, it's been rough. Robert's been stressed about work." I could hear the worry in her voice. Later, I drove by their house. It's only a 10-minute drive. And saw his car wasn't there. Where was he? I didn't want to spy, but I had to know. The next day, I baked a batch of cookies and showed up unannounced. The grandkids ran to the door, hugging my legs. "Nana's here," little Emma shouted. Robert was home, looking like he hadn't slept in days, bags under his eyes. We sat in the kitchen and I didn't beat around the bush. "Son," I said, keeping my voice steady, "I know about the money." His face went white as a sheet. He stammered, "Mom, I was going to pay it back. I had a sure thing, but it fell through." Tears welled up in his eyes. "I'm so sorry. I don't know what's wrong with me." Hearing him admit it was like a weight lifting, but also crushing. We talked for hours that afternoon. He opened up about the debts. Turns out it was more than just my 5,000 snarlers. He owed another 10 grand to some shady folks from his poker games. The stress was eating him alive, making him bet more to try and win it back. Lisa joined us crying too, saying she'd tried to get him to stop, but he hid it well. The grandkids played in the other room, oblivious. I listened, really listened, without interrupting. By the end, Robert was sobbing like a child. "Mom, I've ruined everything." I put my hand on his. "No, you haven't. Not yet." That's when the plan started forming in my mind. I wasn't going to let this destroy us, but I needed help to make it work. Over the next week, I threw myself into action. First, I reached out to a support group for families dealing with addiction. I found one online. My grandson helped me join a video call and talk to other parents who'd been through the same. One lady shared how she set boundaries but also offered a lifeline. It inspired me. Then I looked into treatment options. There was a local center for gambling recovery, with counseling and group meetings. It wasn't cheap, but I figured if I could scrape together some funds, it might save him. But how? My savings were gone. I thought about my house. Maybe sell some old jewelry or furniture. But that felt like giving up. No, I needed something bigger. Here's where things got interesting. I remembered an old friend from the diner days, Mr. Harlan, who ran a small investment club in town. Nothing fancy, just folks pooling money for stocks or local businesses. I'd never joined because I was too scared to risk my savings. But now I had nothing to lose. I called him up. "Ellie, long time," he said. I explained the situation, leaving out the gory details. I need advice on turning a bad situation around. He invited me over for coffee. His place was cozy, full of books on finance. We talked, and he suggested something wild. Use the story to start a small fundraiser, or even invest in a community project that could pay back. But that didn't sit right. Instead, I had a spark. What if I helped Robert start a little business? Something simple like a handyman service, using his skills from those odd jobs. He was good with tools. Fixed my leaky faucet more times than I can count. But to start, we needed seed money. I sold some things. That old necklace from Robert. Kept it, but pawned a few rings and a china set I'd never used. Got about $1,000. Then, I convinced Margaret to chip in $500. For the family, I told her. Robert was hesitant at first, but I sat him down. This isn't a handout, son. This is a fresh start, but you have to commit to the treatment. He agreed, tears in his eyes again. We enrolled him in the program that week. The first meeting was tough. He came home drained but determined. Meanwhile, I helped him set up the business. We made flyers on the computer, simple ones with his name and services. Robert's Reliable Repairs, from faucets to fences. I even went door to door with him in the neighborhood, introducing him like I was his biggest fan. My boy's the best, I'd say with a wink. Months passed and things started turning. Robert attended every session, shared his story with the group, and slowly kicked the habit. No more bets, no more secrets. The business picked up. Word spread about the honest guy who showed up on time. He paid back the debts bit by bit, and even started putting money aside. But the real turnaround? One day he came over with an envelope. "Mom," he said, handing it to me. "This is the first installment." Inside was $500. I'm going to pay back every penny. I hugged him tight, feeling like my heart might burst. Now here's the part that left everyone speechless. At our family Christmas dinner that year, the whole clan gathered, turkey on the table, lights twinkling. I stood up during dessert. Everyone quieted down, expecting maybe a toast. Instead, I said, "Robert took my savings and it hurt, but today I'm giving it back to him. Not as a loan, but as a gift for his new life." Gasps all around. Margaret dropped her fork. Lisa's eyes went wide. Robert stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "Mom, no," he whispered, but I insisted. That money was for family emergencies. This was one, and we fixed it together. Now, use it to grow your business. Make it something for the grandkids. The room was dead silent for a good 10 seconds, then erupted in hugs and tears. No one saw it coming. Not the forgiveness, not the twist of turning loss into gain. Looking back, that $5,000 was more than money. It was a wake-up call that saved my son. We talk every day now. No secrets. The grandkids help with the business flyers, proud as can be. I've got a new savings started, smaller but smarter. Life's funny that way. Sometimes the worst thing leads to the best. If you're dealing with something like this, remember, family isn't about perfection. It's about sticking through the mess. Watch my next story about the time I found a hidden treasure in my attic. You won't believe what happened 6 months after I handed Robert that envelope at Christmas. I thought the storm had passed, but turns out the real lightning was still crackling overhead. It started with a knock on my door at 7 in the morning. I was still in my robe, hair in curlers, feeding Whiskers his breakfast kibble. Through the peephole, I saw Robert standing there, toolbox in one hand, a paper bag from the bakery in the other. His smile looked too big, like he was trying to hide something behind it. "Mom, got a surprise job today," he said, stepping inside before I could ask questions. "Big one. Paying double. Thought we'd celebrate with fresh donuts first." Donuts at 7 a.m. sounded nice, but the way his eyes kept darting to the street made my stomach twist. I took the bag, set it on the counter, and folded my arms. "Robert James Thompson, what aren't you telling me?" He rubbed the back of his neck, the same nervous tic he had since he was 8. "Okay, fine. It's for Mrs. Langford. You know, the widow on Maple who owns half the strip mall downtown? Her whole basement flooded last night. She called me in a panic. Said she'd pay anything if I could fix it before the weekend market." "Mrs. Langford?" I knew her. She came into the diner every Friday for 20 years. Always tipped exactly 15%. Never a penny more. Rich as cream, stingy as winter. If she was offering double, something smelled fishy. I narrowed my eyes. "Double your usual rate or double what you think the job's worth?" He hesitated. "Both, I guess." She said cash, no questions. "Cash." The word hung in the air like smoke. Robert had been clean from gambling for 6 whole months. Meetings 3 times a week. Sponsor on speed dial. Even started a little savings jar labeled College for Emma. Cash jobs were supposed to be off limits. Too tempting. We'd agreed. Checks only. Deposited straight to the business account I helped him open. I grabbed my coat. I'm coming with you. Mom, it's a basement. You hate stairs. Try me. The drive to Maple Street took 8 minutes, but it felt like an hour. Robert kept the radio low, tapping the steering wheel to some old country song. I watched the donut bag sweat grease onto the seat between us. When we pulled up, Mrs. Langford was already outside in leopard print slippers and a silk robe, arms crossed tight. The house looked like a wedding cake someone dropped. 3 stories, white columns, too many windows. "Nana Ellie?" she said when I stepped out. Surprise lifted her eyebrows. "Didn't expect the cavalry." I gave her my sweetest smile. "Family business now. Where's the damage?" She led us around back to a bulkhead door half submerged in muddy water. Robert whistled low. That's more than a sump pump failure. Inside the basement was a lake. Floating boxes, ruined furniture. A lifetime of junk bobbing like sad little boats. But what caught my eye wasn't the water. It was the safe. Big black, bolted to the concrete floor. Door cracked open just enough to see stacks of cash inside. Rubber banded and dripping. Mrs. Langford saw me looking. "Family heirlooms," she said quickly. "Sentimental value." Robert knelt by the safe, shining his flashlight. "Ma'am, this thing's rusted shut from the flood. I can pump the water, dry the space. But that safe needs a pro locksmith. And honestly, looks like someone tried forcing it already." Her face went the color of skim milk. Just get the water out. I'll handle the rest." I tugged Robert's sleeve. We stepped onto the patio, out of earshot. "Son, that safe wasn't open because of the flood. Look at the scratches. Someone pried it." He frowned. "You think she's hiding something?" "I think she's scared. And scared people do desperate things." We spent the next 4 hours pumping water, hauling soggy boxes upstairs, laying fans. Mrs. Langford hovered the whole time, offering lemonade nobody drank. By noon, the floor was dry enough to walk on, but the safe still sat there like a black toad, door ajar, cash peeking out. Robert wiped his hands on a rag. "I can seal the bulkhead, reinforce the drain. But that safe—" "I said I'll handle it," Mrs. Langford snapped. Then softer, "Please, just finish the job." He quoted her $1,200. She peeled off $1,500 in hundreds from a kitchen drawer. No receipt, no invoice. Robert's fingers shook when he took the bills. I saw the hunger flash across his face. Old ghost waking up. In the truck on the way home, he gripped the wheel so tight his knuckles went white. "Mom, I'm putting every cent in the bank today." Swear to God, I believed him. Mostly. That night I couldn't sleep. The image of that safe kept swimming behind my eyelids. At 2 a.m., I did something I'd never done before. I Googled Mrs. Langford on my phone. Took me 20 minutes to figure out the search bar. But there it was. Old newspaper clippings. Her late husband, Arthur Langford, had been investigated for laundering money through the strip mall 20 years ago. Case dropped for lack of evidence. But the safe scratches looked fresh. Next morning, I baked banana bread, my thinking fuel, and marched over to Margaret's. She was in her garden, pruning roses like they owed her money. "Need your brain, sis," I said, handing her a loaf still warm. We sat on her porch swing. I told her everything. When I finished, she didn't speak for a full minute, just rocked us back and forth. Finally, "Ellie, you're poking a bear. Rich folks don't like their secrets aired." "I'm not airing anything. I just want to make sure Robert stays clean. That cash. It's a test." Margaret sipped her coffee. "Then set a bigger test. Help the widow, help your boy, and keep your nose clean." She had an idea. Crazy, but it felt right. That afternoon, I called Mrs. Langford. "Ma'am, it's Ellie Thompson, Robert's mom. I've got a proposition." Silence on the line. Then, "I'm listening. Robert can fix your safe problem, but we do it legal. Locksmith, police report if needed, everything above board. In exchange, you let him bid on renovating one of your empty storefronts. Fair rate, real contract. He needs legitimate work, not cash under the table." Another long pause. "Why would you help me?" "Because I know what it's like to be scared for family. And because my son's walking a tightrope. Help me keep him steady. I'll help you sleep at night." She agreed to think about it. I hung up and called Robert. "Meet me at the diner. Bring your toolbox and your sponsor's number." He showed up looking like a kid called to the principal. I slid into the booth across from him. "Here's the deal. We're going back to Mrs. Langford's tomorrow. You're bringing a licensed locksmith. We open that safe together. Inventory everything. Call the authorities if anything looks off. No shortcuts." His jaw tightened. "Mom, that money isn't yours to worry about. Your job is the basement and the storefront bid. Nothing else." He stared at his coffee. "What if I can't say no to the cash? Then you call your sponsor right there in her kitchen, and I'll be standing next to you." The locksmith, a gruff man named Tony with tattoos up both arms, met us at the house the next day. Mrs. Langford wrung her hands while he drilled the safe. When the door swung wide, we all gasped. No drugs, no bodies, just cash. Stacks and stacks, way more than flood damage could explain. And beneath the money, a ledger, old leather-bound, pages yellowed. Tony whistled. "Lady, this ain't sentimental. This is evidence." Mrs. Langford sank into a chair. "It was Arthur's. He kept 2 sets of books for them all. I thought if I got rid of it." Robert looked at me, eyes wide. I nodded toward the door. "Time to call the police, ma'am. But you tell them the truth, and you hire my son for that storefront fair and square. Maybe they go easy." She did. Detectives came, took statements, hauled the ledger away. Turns out Arthur had skimmed taxes for decades, hidden the cash to avoid liens. Mrs. Langford wasn't charged. She'd been clueless, or so she claimed. But the IRS froze everything pending audit. 3 weeks later, Robert got the contract. Not cash, but a real purchase order. Renovate the old bakery into a repair shop. His repair shop. Mrs. Langford put it in writing. Paid half up front through the bank. Robert framed the check and hung it in his garage. But the story doesn't end with a ribbon and a bow, because addiction doesn't care about framed checks. One Friday night, Robert didn't come home. Lisa called me frantic at midnight. He said he was meeting a supplier, but his phone's off. I threw on clothes, grabbed Margaret, and we drove every back road he used to haunt. Found his truck parked outside the old VFW hall, site of underground poker games. My heart sank. Inside, cigarette haze and low voices. Robert sat at a table, chips stacked high, face slick with sweat. He was winning. Big. I marched straight up, yanked the chair out from under him. "Stand up." The room went quiet. Robert's eyes met mine. Panic, shame, thrill, all mixed. "Mom, I can explain in the car." He cashed out, $4,200 in winnings. Walked out without a fight. In the parking lot, he handed me the envelope. "Deposit it tomorrow. Every dime. I swear I was gonna." I believed the swear, but I also saw the shake in his hands. Next morning, we changed the rules. All cash jobs required a witness, me, Lisa, or his sponsor. He started carrying a burner phone with only 3 numbers. Home, meetings, me. And the big one. He signed over power of attorney for the business account to me until he hit 1 year clean. Harsh, maybe, necessary. Absolutely. Mrs. Langford's storefront opened 6 months later. Grand opening had balloons, free coffee, the works. Robert cut the ribbon with Emma on his shoulders. The place smelled like fresh paint and possibility. He hired 2 guys from his support group, paid them fair, taught them the trade. But the real miracle happened on a random Tuesday. I was at the shop helping with paperwork when a man walked in. Suit, tie, nervous smile. "Looking for Robert Thompson?" Robert came out from the back wiping grease off his hands. The man introduced himself as an IRS agent. My stomach dropped. "Mrs. Langford's audit wrapped up," he said. She insisted we deliver this in person. He handed Robert an envelope. Inside, a cashier's check for $18,000. Back taxes recovered from the safe. She said give it to the man who saved her from herself. Robert stared at the check like it might bite him. Then he looked at me. Mom? I smiled. College fund for the grandkids. And maybe a new truck for the business. But first you call your sponsor. He did. Right there in the showroom, on speaker. Told the whole story. The agent waited patiently. When Robert hung up, he endorsed the check straight to the bank. No detours. That night, the whole family gathered at my house. Robert stood up during dessert. Déjà vu from Christmas, but different this time. I took something precious once, he said, voice cracking. Today, I'm giving back something better. He slid an envelope across the table to me. Inside, 5-door exact. Interest included. From the shop profits. I tried to push it back. Son, keep it for the business. He shook his head. Mom, you taught me money isn't the savings. It's the trust. This is me earning yours again. The room went quiet. Same stunned silence as before. Then Lisa started clapping. The kids joined in. Even Whiskers meowed from the windowsill. Margaret raised her glass. To second chances. I took the money, but the next day I did something sneaky. Opened a new account. In Robert's name. But with me as custodian until the kids turn 18. Deposited every penny. He'll find out on Emma's graduation. Some surprises are worth keeping. These days, Robert's shop has a waiting list. He mentors kids fresh out of juvie. Teaches them welding, plumbing, how to show up on time. Mrs. Langford stops by once a month with cookies. Store-bought. But we pretend not to notice. And me? I still bake apple pie on Tuesdays. But now I deliver slices to the shop. Watch my son laugh with his crew. See the light back in his eyes. The $5,000 is gone and back and gone again. But the story, that's the real fortune. Because sometimes the worst theft isn't the money. It's the trust. And sometimes the greatest gift is handing it back, piece by piece, until the vault in your heart is fuller than ever. If this hit you in the feels, stick around. I've got the wild tale of what Robert found inside that old bakery wall during renovations. You'll never guess. Clara Jr.'s jaw dropped. You're saying my mom owns half the strip mall? Technically, yes. Worth a lot. Evelyn waved a shaky hand. Don't want it. Never did. But my granddaughter, Clara's girl, she's got medical bills. Cancer. Mrs. Langford straightened, wiping her face. Then it's hers. All of it. I'll sign whatever needs signing. Lawyers got involved. Turns out the trust was ironclad. Arthur had been smarter than anyone knew. The bakery, the mall, 3 vacant lots. Appraised at $2.4 million. Half went to Evelyn's bloodline. Mrs. Langford kept her house, her dignity, and a clean conscience. But the real twist came later. 6 months after the settlement, Clara Jr. showed up at Robert's shop with a U-Haul. Mom passed last week, she said. Left you this. A manila envelope. Inside, the locket, the baby curl, and a note in Evelyn's handwriting. Robert, you gave me back my daughter's future. Take this. Start a scholarship for kids like you. Ones who mess up but try again. Call it the Second Chance Fund. Robert cried in the parking lot. Big heaving sobs that scared the customers. Then he framed the note next to the $18,000 check. The fund started with $50,000 from the trust. First recipient, a 17-year-old who'd stolen his mom's rent money for drugs. Kid's now Robert's apprentice, top of his class at trade school. Mrs. Langford sold her mansion, moved into a condo near the shop. Comes in every Tuesday for coffee, brings store-bought cookies. Calls Robert's son when she thinks no one's listening. Clara Jr. visits twice a year, brings her granddaughter, cancer in remission, full ride to college courtesy of the fund. And the wall. Robert left a brick missing, turned the cavity into a display case. Inside, the tin box, open, empty except for a plaque. Some walls hide pain, some hide truth. Tear them down carefully. I still bake apple pie on Tuesdays. Now I deliver to the shop, the condo, and once a month to Florida. Clara Jr. says the pie's the only thing her mom remembered till the end. The $5,000 came and went. But the real inheritance, it's the sound of hammers at dawn, kids laughing in the break room, and a 91-year-old woman's voice saying, "Thank you for finding me." Family isn't just blood. Sometimes it's the people who show up when the wall comes down. Stick around. I've got the story of the day Robert's first apprentice proposed in the shop, using a wrench as a ring. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll never look at plumbing the same. The day the wall came down, I was supposed to be at the church quilting bee. Instead, I was knee-deep in plaster dust, holding a flashlight like I was Indiana Jones. Robert had been renovating Mrs. Langford's old bakery for 3 months, turning it into his repair shop. The place was a time capsule. Cracked pink tiles, a soda fountain that hadn't poured since Eisenhower, and a walk-in freezer big enough to hide a body. He'd gutted most of it, but one wall in the back office refused to budge. Thick as a bank vault, no studs, no wiring. Just solid brick that didn't match the rest of the building. Probably a chimney they bricked over, Robert said, swinging his sledgehammer like it owed him money. Let's open it up, run some vents. I was there to bring lunch, meatloaf sandwiches and thermos coffee, when the first brick gave way. A puff of gray dust, then a clatter. Something metal hit the floor. Robert froze mid-swing. "Mom, shine the light." I did. There in the cavity was a rusted tin box the size of a shoebox, lid dented, padlock snapped clean off. My heart did a little flip. I'd seen enough murder mysteries to know this was either treasure or trouble. "Robert, don't touch it. Could be asbestos or too late." He'd already pried it open. Inside, a stack of yellowed envelopes, a velvet pouch, and a leather journal wrapped in oilcloth. No cash, no bones, just paper and secrets. He lifted the top envelope, addressed to A. Langford in spidery handwriting, postmarked 1953. No return address. The flap was sealed with red wax, cracked but intact. I swatted his hand. "That's Mrs. Langford's mail. We're not opening it. But Mom, it's been here 70 years, and it's in my wall now. Your wall, her building. Same difference. We argued for 5 minutes, dust settling on our sandwiches. Finally, I compromised. We'd take the box to Mrs. Langford unopened. Let her decide." Robert grumbled but agreed. He was still on probation with trust. My rules, not the court's. That afternoon, we showed up at her mansion unannounced. She answered the door in a silk turban and pearls, like she'd been expecting the Queen. When she saw the tin, her face went the color of dishwater. "Where did you find this?" she whispered. "Behind the bakery office wall," Robert said. "Looks like it's been there since the building went up." She led us to her parlor, velvet couches, doilies, the works, and set the box on a lace tablecloth like it might explode. Hands trembling, she broke the wax seal on the first envelope. Inside was a single photograph, a young couple outside the bakery, arms around each other, smiling like the world was brand new. The man was unmistakably Arthur Langford. Same sharp jaw, same cocky grin. The woman? Not Mrs. Langford. Younger, darker hair, a beauty mark above her lip. Mrs. Langford's breath hitched. That's Evelyn." Robert and I exchanged looks. "Evelyn who?" She opened the journal next. Pages filled with Arthur's handwriting, tight, angry loops. Dates from 1952 to 1955. Entries about E and the baby, and "She'll never forgive me." My skin prickled. Mrs. Langford read aloud, voice shaking. "March 12th, 1953. Evelyn says the child is mine. I told her I'd leave Clara, but the mall deal is closing. Can't risk scandal. Gave her $500 to leave town?" she cried. "God help me." Clara was Mrs. Langford. She'd married Arthur in 1950. No kids. Always said it was God's will. Now we knew why. She kept reading, faster, tears smudging the ink. Evelyn had been the bakery's first counter girl. Arthur promised marriage, got her pregnant, then paid her to disappear when the mall investors came sniffing. The velvet pouch held a tiny gold locket. Inside, a curl of baby hair and a faded ultrasound-sized photo of a newborn. Mrs. Langford closed the journal. I knew he strayed. But a child? Robert cleared his throat. Ma'am, what do you want us to do with this? She stared at the locket like it might bite her. Find her. Find Evelyn, or the child. If they're alive. I nearly choked on my dentures. We're not detectives. You found the box, she said. Arthur's ghost chose you? I'll pay whatever it takes. Robert's eyes lit up, dollar signs dancing. But I elbowed him. We'll help as a favor. No fee. But we do it clean. That night, Robert and I spread the contents across my kitchen table. Whiskers batted at the envelopes like they were toys. The journal mentioned Evelyn's hometown, Bridgeton, 2 hours north, and a cousin named Ruth, who knew everything. No last names, but the postmarks gave us a start. Next morning, I called in reinforcements. Margaret, who once tracked down our runaway cousin in '78 using nothing but a phone book and stubbornness, she showed up with her laptop and a thermos of spiked coffee. Dead people are easy, she said, cracking her knuckles. Living ones hide. We started with census records. Evelyn Marie Carter, born 1932, Bridgeton, married a mechanic named Paul Grayson in 1956. One daughter, Clara Evelyn Grayson, born December 1953. My stomach flipped. Clara, same name as Mrs. Langford. Coincidence? Doubtful. By noon, we had an address in Florida. Retirement community, Ocean View. Evelyn was 91. The daughter, Clara Jr., 69, lived nearby. No criminal records, no social media. Ghosts. Robert wanted to drive down immediately. I made him wait. We don't ambush a 91-year-old with her rapist's love child drama. Instead, I wrote a letter. Old school, on stationery with roses. Told Evelyn we'd found something belonging to her. No details. Just an invitation to call. Mailed it priority with a self-addressed envelope. 3 days later, my phone rang. Unknown number, Florida area code. Is this Eleanor Thompson? A woman's voice, sharp but kind. Yes, ma'am? This is Clara Grayson. My mother got your letter. She's upset. Says she needs to talk to someone named Langford. In person. I gripped the phone. We can arrange that. They flew up the following week. I offered my house. Neutral ground. Cookies included. Mrs. Langford arrived first, dressed like she was attending a funeral. Robert paced the porch, nervous as a cat. Margaret hid in the kitchen, ready to referee. Evelyn came in a wheelchair pushed by Clara Jr. Tiny, white-haired, eyes like blue ice. She took one look at Mrs. Langford and started crying. You're Clara, she said. The wife. Mrs. Langford nodded, mute. Clara Jr. parked the wheelchair, then stood tall. Mom has Alzheimer's, good days and bad. Today's good, but she may not remember tomorrow. We sat in a circle like a weird family reunion. I poured tea nobody drank. Evelyn spoke first, voice raspy but clear. I loved him. Thought he loved me. When I told him about the baby, he gave me money and a bus ticket. Said his wife was sick, couldn't handle the shame. I believed him. She laughed bitter. Took me 40 years to learn Clara was healthy as a horse. Mrs. Langford flinched. I knew nothing. He said the bakery girl quit. That was it. Clara Jr. pulled photos from a bag. Baby pictures, school portraits. A wedding. The granddaughter looked just like Arthur. Same jaw, same grin. I grew up thinking my dad died in Korea, she said. Mom never told me different till I was 30. By then, Arthur was dead. I hated him. Still do. Silence stretched like taffy. Then Evelyn reached for Mrs. Langford's hand. I don't want your money. I just wanted you to know she existed. My Clara, your husband's daughter. Mrs. Langford broke, sobbing, ugly crying, mascara running. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Robert, who'd been quiet as a mouse, spoke up. Ma'am, both of you. There's more in the box. Deeds. Arthur left the bakery to E. and Child in a trust, dated 1955. He never filed it, but it's legal. Means the building's half yours, Miss Evelyn. The wrench was supposed to be a joke. That's what everyone thought when Tommy, Robert's first apprentice, the kid who'd stolen his own mom's rent money 2 years back, dropped to one knee in the middle of the shop floor, grease on his cheek, holding up a chrome 10mm like it was a diamond. "Marry me, Jess?" he asked, voice cracking worse than the tile he'd just laid. Jessica, the barista from next door who brought burnt coffee every morning because she liked watching Tommy blush, went redder than the fire extinguisher. The whole crew, Robert, the 2 new guys, Mrs. Langford sipping her decaf, even Whiskers on the windowsill, froze. You could hear the compressor in the back humming like it was nervous. Jess opened her mouth. "Closed it! Opened it again? Tommy, that's a wrench." "Yeah," he said, grinning like an idiot. "But it's your wrench. Been using it to fix the espresso machine for 6 months. Figured it's got our history in it." The crew lost it. Laughter, whistles. Someone started clapping. Robert slapped Tommy on the back so hard the kid nearly face-planted. Into the parts bin. Mrs. Langford dabbed her eyes with a napkin that said, "Roberts, Reliable Repairs in Comic Sans Eye," was in the corner pretending to organize invoices. But really I was watching my son. Robert's face did something I hadn't seen in years. Pure, uncomplicated pride. Not the tight-lipped please don't relapse kind, but the look what we built kind. Jess finally said yes, with the wrench. She slipped it on her finger like a ring, then kissed Tommy so hard his safety glasses fogged. The crew cheered louder. Someone popped a root beer like champagne. That night the shop stayed open late. We pushed the tool benches together, laid out a potluck on butcher paper. My meatloaf, Margaret's 7-layer dip, Clara Jr.'s key lime pie flown up from Florida. Even the cancer granddaughter Mia FaceTimed in from college, waving her scholarship letter like a flag. Robert stood on a milk crate to make a toast. To Tommy and Jess, and to second chances. May your marriage outlast this building. And that's saying something. Glasses clinked. Someone yelled, "Speech from the grandma!" I waved them off, but Robert wasn't having it. He dragged me up beside him, arm around my shoulders. Mom's the reason any of this exists. She's the original second chance. I felt my cheeks burn. "Sit down. You're embarrassing me." But they wouldn't. So I cleared my throat and told them the truth. "Tommy, when you walked in here 2 years ago, you were shaking so bad you dropped a socket set on my foot. Robert wanted to send you packing." I said give him 1 week. 1, because I know what it's like to watch someone you love drown. And I know what it's like to throw them a rope. Tommy's eyes glistened. Jess squeezed his hand. "The one still wearing the wrench." "You earned this," I continued. "Not just the girl, not just the job. You earned the right to stand here without shame. That's the real ring." The room got quiet. Even the compressor seemed to hush. Then Mrs. Langford raised her cup. "To Eleanor, who tears down walls and builds better ones." They drank, I cried. Robert hugged me so tight my curlers shifted. The wedding was 3 months later, in the shop. Yes, in the shop. They cleared the bays, strung fairy lights from the hydraulic lifts, laid plywood over the oil stains for a dance floor. Jess walked down an aisle of tool chests. Tommy waited under the parts shelf, wearing a tuxedo t-shirt that said, "I fix things." Robert officiated. He got ordained online for $20 and a promise not to make jokes about tightening nuts. I baked the cake, 3 tiers, chocolate, vanilla, and a surprise middle layer of apple pie filling, because traditions matter. Margaret cried into the frosting. Clara Jr. flew up with Mia, who'd just finished her first semester, debt-free. Mrs. Langford wore a hat the size of a satellite dish and slipped the couple an envelope thick enough to choke you. "Goat, college fund for your kids," she whispered, "or a down payment on a house. Just don't spend it on lottery tickets." The reception was chaos in the best way. The crew formed a conga line through the paint booth. Someone rigged the air compressor to play "Here comes the bride" in honks. Whiskers stole a shrimp and hid under the bridal table. But the moment that still makes me tear up, the father-daughter dance. Except Jess's dad wasn't there. He'd passed when she was little, so Robert stepped in. They slow danced to an old Patsy Cline song crackling from the shop radio, his work boots scuffing the plywood. Halfway through, Tommy cut in, but Robert wouldn't let go of Jess's hand. "I'm not giving her away," he said. "I'm adding on." So they danced three-way, awkward and perfect, while the crew clapped offbeat. Later, when the cake was gone and the lights dimmed, I found Robert outside smoking a cigar he swore was his last. The sky was clear, stars sharp as socket wrenches. "You okay, Mom?" he asked. I leaned against the roll-up door. "Better than okay. You gave that boy a future. You gave Jess a family. You gave me back my son." He exhaled smoke toward the moon. "You gave me the rope, Mom. I just learned how to tie the knot." We stood there quiet, listening to the music inside. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Not for Jess, for me. Inside, a new necklace. Simple gold chain, heart pendant. Just like the one he'd bought me at 10, but grown up. Engraved on the back, "Still your boy." I cried again. He fastened it around my neck, fingers steady. No shakes, no ghosts. The next surprise came a week after the honeymoon. Tommy and Jess showed up at my door, sunburned from a weekend in the mountains, holding a manila envelope. "Found this in the shop attic," Tommy said, "behind the old soda fountain. Thought you should open it." I took it to the kitchen table, same spot where we'd spread Evelyn's secrets. Inside, a roll of blueprints, yellowed and crisp. The original plans for the strip mall, dated 1950. But someone had drawn over them in red ink. New walls, new doors. A hidden room behind the bakery marked safe storage. Robert arrived 10 minutes later, still in his work shirt. We unrolled the plans under the lamp. The hidden room matched the wall we'd torn down, the one with the tin box. But there was more. A second mark, fainter, behind the current parts counter. Vault, it said, with Arthur Langford's initials. Mrs. Langford confirmed it later. Arthur was paranoid, built false walls everywhere, said it was for inventory security. I thought he was crazy. Robert stared at the blueprints like they were a treasure map. We gutted that whole area. Nothing there. Tommy grinned. Not yet. They tore into the wall the next morning. I brought donuts. Plain glaze, no surprises this time. The sledgehammer made quick work of the drywall. Behind it, a steel door, padlocked, painted the same beige as the wall. No one had noticed it in 20 years. Robert called a locksmith. The same Tony with the tattoos. Half an hour later, the door swung open. Inside, not cash. Not ledgers, just shelves. Dozens of them, floor to ceiling, lined with mason jars. Hundreds of jars, sealed with wax, labeled in Arthur's handwriting. Fue Mantion, First Prophet 93, Evelyn's Silence 95. Clara's tears each jar held coins. Silver dollars mostly, some gold. A few rare ones I'd seen on Antiques Roadshow. Robert opened one carefully. The coins inside were pristine, stacked like poker chips. Mrs. Langford arrived hat askew. He called it his conscience fund, she said faintly. Every time he did something shady, he put in a coin. Said one day he'd cash it out for charity. Never did. Appraiser came 2 days later. Total value, $187,000. Legal as sunlight. Arthur had declared it all on old tax returns, buried in fine print. The crew voted unanimously. Add it to the Second Chance Fund. But with a twist. Every kid who gets a scholarship has to put $1 silver in a jar on the shop shelf, labeled with their name and the year they graduate. When the jar's full, it funds the next kid. Tommy and Jess started the tradition. Their jar sits front and center, already halfway full. Mia's coin is in there. So is the kid who used to steal rent money. Mrs. Langford comes every Tuesday now. Adds a coin of her own. Calls it penance. I call it progress. The shop's bigger these days. Added a classroom in the back. teach welding, plumbing, life skills. Robert's got 12 apprentices, half on scholarship. Jess runs the front, schedules jobs, burns the coffee less. They're expecting a baby in spring. Named it after me if it's a girl, Robert if it's a boy. I told them pick something neutral. Just don't name it Wrench. And me? I still bake on Tuesdays, still wear the heart necklace, still tell stories. But now when kids ask how I got through the worst of it, I don't talk about the $5,000. I talk about the wall, the one we tore down, the one we built better. Because some things aren't hidden to hurt you. They're hidden to heal you. When you're ready to swing the hammer, the next chapter's already started. Tommy found a loose floorboard under the soda fountain last week. Something metal clinked underneath. We're waiting till the baby's born to open it. Some surprises are worth the wait. Stick around. The baby came early, on a Tuesday, naturally. While I was elbow deep in pie crust, Jess's water broke right in the shop, soaking the invoice book and Tommy's best boots. Robert drove like a maniac, one hand on the wheel, one on Jess's knee, yelling, "Breathe, kid, breathe!" I followed in my old Buick with Margaret riding shotgun, clutching the hospital bag like it was the Stanley Cup. Little Eleanor Rose Thompson, Ellie for short, arrived at 3:17 p.m., 6 pounds, 2 ounces, with a tuft of red hair that looked suspiciously like Tommy's when he forgets to cut it. The nurses said she came out smiling. I believe them. The kid's been trouble ever since. We didn't open the floorboard that day. Or the next. Or the next. Life got loud. Diapers. 2 a.m. feedings. Jess learning to nurse while balancing a wrench in her teeth. The shop ran on caffeine and grandparent power. Mrs. Langford showed up every morning with a thermos of decaf and a stack of burp cloths. She'd monogrammed RRT for Robert's reliable repairs. Clara Jr. sent onesies from Florida printed with tiny alligators. Even Whiskers learned to tiptoe around the bassinet. 3 months later, on a quiet Saturday when Ellie finally slept through a full shift, Tommy cornered Robert by the soda fountain. "It's time, boss. Floorboard's been staring at me like it knows something." Robert looked at me. I looked at the baby monitor. Green light, steady breathing. "All right," I said, "but we do it gentle. No sledgehammers. This building's given us enough surprises." We gathered the usual suspects. Tommy, Jess, with Ellie in a sling. Mrs. Langford in her Saturday hat. Margaret with her phone camera ready. The crew formed a half circle like we were about to witness a birth again. Tommy pried the loose board with a flat bar. It came up smooth, no rot, no squeaks. Underneath a shallow metal box, army green. The kind soldiers used in old war movies. Stenciled on top, AL, 1945. Arthur Langford before the mall, before the bakery, before everything. Robert lifted it out like it was made of glass. The lock was rusted solid. Tony the locksmith was on vacation, so Tommy grabbed the cordless grinder. Sparks flew. The lid popped. Inside, not coins, not papers. A single reel-to-reel tape. Brittle plastic spool. Labeled in faded ink. For Clara. Play only. If I'm gone. Mrs. Langford went pale. That's Arthur's handwriting. He recorded everything. Business deals, grocery lists, love notes. I thought the player broke decades ago. Robert disappeared into the back room and returned with a dusty machine the size of a suitcase. One of the apprentices had rescued it from a curb last year. Said it looked retro cool. We plugged it in, crossed our fingers, and threaded the tape, static. Then a voice, younger, cockier, but unmistakably Arthur. "Clara, if you're hearing this, I'm dead and you're mad." "Good. You should be. I built us a castle on quicksand and I'm sorry. The mall, the money, the lies, none of it was worth losing you. But there's one truth I never told. The war changed me. I came home missing pieces. Evelyn was a mistake. The baby? God, the baby was a miracle I didn't deserve. I tried to fix it with cash. Cash fixes nothing. There's a second vault, under the fountain itself. Combination is our wedding date backward. 5091948. Inside is every dirty dollar I ever hid, plus the clean ones I saved for the kid I never met. Give it to her, or burn it. Just don't let it rot like I did. I loved you, Clara. Still do. Tell the boy I'm proud if he turned out half the man his mother is. End of tape. Click. Silence. Then Mrs. Langford started laughing, wet, hiccuping sobs that turned into actual giggles. He called me Clara the whole time we dated. I thought it was romantic. Turns out he was just too lazy to learn my nickname. We stared at the soda fountain like it had grown teeth. It was original to the building. Pink formica, chrome stools, the works. Robert ran his hand along the baseboards. Wedding date backward, May 9th, 1948. Let's try it. He knelt, spun the old safe dial none of us had ever noticed under the counter. Click, click, click. The front panel swung open on hidden hinges. Inside, another strongbox, smaller, stuffed with canvas bank bags. We hauled it out, laid it on the counter like a newborn. 23 bags, each labeled with a year from 1946 to 1965. We opened one, 1952. Crisp $100 bills, still banded, smelling of mildew and regret. Another, 1960, held war bonds. A third had a single photograph. Arthur in uniform, arm around a smiling GI who looked just like Tommy, if you squinted. Mrs. Langford counted on her fingers. That's over $1 million in today's money, maybe more. Tommy whistled. Jess clutched Ellie tighter. The baby cooed, grabbed a fistful of Jess's hair and yanked. Life, keeping us humble. We called the lawyers again. Same firm that handled Evelyn's trust. Turns out Arthur had set up a second trust in 1965. Never activated because he died before signing. The money was legally ours to distribute. Mrs. Langford's call. She didn't even hesitate. Split it 4 ways, she said. One for the Second Chance Fund. One for Ellie's college. Hers and any cousins who come after. One for the shop to expand. Classrooms, tools, whatever Robert needs. And the last, she looked at me. For Nana Ellie, buy yourself a new oven. Or a cruise. Or just sit on it and cackle. You earned it. I tried to argue. She shut me up with a look that could stop traffic. The expansion broke ground in spring. We knocked out the back wall, added a daycare corner with cribs and a changing table. Jess's idea. The Second Chance Fund hit 7 figures. We started a satellite program in Bridgerton, Evelyn's hometown, teaching girls welding. Clara Jr. runs it. Mia's the first instructor. Mrs. Langford moved into an apartment above the shop. Says the smell of motor oil keeps her young. She and Whiskers have a morning routine. She feeds him tuna. He judges her outfits. And the tape? Robert digitized it, burned copies for everyone. We play it once a year on Arthur's birthday. May 9th. The crew gathers. Babies on hips. Apprentices wide-eyed. We listen to a dead man apologize. Then we go fix something. A carburetor. A marriage. A kid who thinks he's broken for good. Ellie's first word wasn't mama. It was hammer. Tommy cried. Jess blamed the shop fumes. I blame genetics. The $5,000 that started it all is now a framed bill on the wall. Serial number circled. Labeled seed money. Below it, a plaque. Some debts can't be paid in cash. Pay them forward. I still bake on Tuesdays. The new oven's a beauty. Double convection keeps the crust flaky. I deliver pies to the shop, the daycare, the satellite program. Sometimes I find Mrs. Langford in the classroom, teaching apprentices how to balance a checkbook using 1940s math. She tells them, money's just metal until you give it meaning. Robert's hair is going gray at the temples. He says it's from Ellie's 3 a.m. concerts. I say it's from carrying the weight of second chances. Either way, he wears it proud. Last week, a new kid walked in. 17, shaking, court papers in his pocket. Stole his grandma's Social Security check for fentanyl. Robert didn't flinch. Handed him a broom, said, "Start here. We'll talk when the floor shines." I watched from the office, heart full. Same speech I gave Tommy. Same chance I gave Robert. Same rope. The circle keeps widening. And the building. It's out of walls to hide things, we think. But every time the floor creaks or a pipe knocks, the crew looks up, half smiling, half scared. Because this place, this dusty, greasy, pie-scented miracle, still has stories to tell. Ellie's learning to walk now, toddling between tool benches, clutching that chrome wrench like a teddy bear. Yesterday, she pointed at the framed $5 and said clear as day, Nana's. Close enough. The next surprise is already brewing. Mrs. Langford found a key in Arthur's old war footlocker. Small, brass, no tag. It doesn't fit any lock in the building. Yet. We'll wait. Some doors open when the time's right. Stick around. The pie's still warm. The key didn't fit anything. That's what we told ourselves for 6 whole months. It sat in a mason jar on the shop counter, next to the tip jar and the donation box for the Second Chance Fund. Brass, short, teeth worn smooth on one side, like it had opened 1,000 doors and given up on the last one. Mrs. Langford swore she'd never seen it. Arthur's war footlocker had been locked since Truman was president. She only cracked it open after the tape, looking for more ghosts. The key was taped inside the lid with a strip of yellowed Scotch tape, and one word in Arthur's handwriting: home. We tried every lock in the building. Front door, back door, parts cabinet, the old safe under the fountain. Nothing. Tommy even took it to the hardware store and had a copy made. Still nothing. Ellie used it as a teething toy until the edges turned shiny from drool. Then came the storm. August, the kind that turns the sky green and makes dogs hide under beds. Power went out at 4:12 p.m. I remember because the shop clock froze with its hands stuck like a shrug. Rain hammered the tin roof like it had a personal grudge. Robert sent the crew home early. Jess bundled Ellie into the truck. I stayed to help Mrs. Langford close up her apartment upstairs. The woman refused to leave her cat, Muffin, alone with Thunder. We were locking the roll-up door when the lightning hit, not near us, dead center on the old oak out front. The tree that had shaded the bakery since before I was born. Crack like the world split open. The trunk exploded, bark flying like shrapnel. When the smoke cleared, the tree was split down the middle, roots clawing the sky, and something glinted in the hollow that used to be its heart. Robert saw it first. Mom, that's not natural. The hollow wasn't a hollow. It was a cavity lined with rusted tin, like someone had hollowed out the tree decades ago and sealed it with pitch. And inside, a metal box, army green, same as the one under the floorboard. Smaller, padlocked. Mrs. Langford's hand flew to her mouth. Arthur planted that tree the day we opened the bakery. Said it would outlive us both. Tommy sprinted for the key jar. His boots squelched in the mud. The key slid into the padlock like it had been waiting 75 years for a thunderstorm. Click. Inside the box, a single glass bottle, corked, filled with dirt, and a note, rolled tight, protected in a plastic sleeve. Robert read it aloud, voice steady even as rain soaked his shirt. Clara, if the tree falls, the secret's ready. This is soil from the corner lot, where the drive-in theater used to be. I bought it in '49 with my first clean dollar after the war. Never built on it. Kept it for the boy, or the girl, whoever needed a real home. Deeds in the bank, box 217. Tell them the oak sent you. Plant something that grows straight. Love. Hey, Mrs. Langford started crying again. Quiet this time, like she'd run out of loud years ago. The corner lot. Everyone in town knew it. 2 acres of weeds and broken dreams where the Skyview Drive-In burned down in 1968. Arthur had snapped it up at auction for pennies, then let it sit. Rumor was he lost a bet. Truth was he was waiting. We went to the bank the next morning. Manager looked at us like we'd grown extra heads until Mrs. Langford slid over the note. Box 217 hadn't been opened since 1972. Inside, a deed, crisp as the day it was signed, and a second key, this one long, skeletal, for a gate that didn't exist anymore. The lot was ours, well hers, then ours, then the funds, then After a vote with pie and root beer, the communities. We broke ground in October. Robert designed it. A tiny house village for kids aging out of foster care. 12 cottages, each with a porch and a tool shed. A community center in the middle shaped like the old drive-in screen. Mrs. Langford insisted on one condition. Every house gets an oak sapling grown from the fallen tree's acorns. Margaret started them in egg cartons on her windowsill. The first cottage went to a girl named Rosa, 18, timed out of the system, working nights at the diner where I used to flip burgers. She moved in with one duffel bag and a stray cat she found in the parking lot. Robert handed her the key on a ribbon. Ellie, now 2 and bossy, tugged Rosa's sleeve and said, "Hammer." Rosa laughed so hard she cried. We named the village Oak Haven. Mrs. Langford cut the ribbon with garden shears because scissors are for quitters. Clara Jr. flew up with Mia, who's cancer-free and studying architecture. They designed the community center to look like the old bakery. Pink tiles, chrome stools, a soda fountain that actually works. The Second Chance Fund paid for the build. The shop crew did the labor for free. Weekends, evenings, holidays. Tommy taught plumbing. Jess ran the daycare so parents could swing hammers. I baked, a lot. The oak saplings grew faster than anyone expected, like they knew they had roots to replace. Opening day was chaos. News trucks. Mayor in a hard hat 2 sizes too big. Kids running between cottages like it was Christmas. Rosa stood on her porch, cat in her arms, and told the reporter, "I never had a door that was mine. Now I've got 2. Mrs. Langford pulled me aside after the speeches. "Arthur's spinning in his grave," she said, "and smiling while he does it." That night, the village had its first bonfire in the center courtyard. Robert brought the old reel-to-reel player, hooked it to a car battery. We played Arthur's tape one last time. His voice crackled over the flames, apologizing, explaining, hoping. When it ended, Rosa stood up. "I've got something to say." She held up a mason jar, same as the coin jars in the shop, inside a single acorn. "This one's from my cottage tree. When it's big enough, I'm planting it here. For the next kid who thinks home is a myth." She passed the jar. Everyone added something. A screw, a washer, a dime, a crayon drawing from Ellie. By the end, it was heavy as hope. Mrs. Langford added the brass key. "Last surprise," she whispered. "Lock the jar. Bury it under the flagpole. Let the next generation dig it up when they need reminding." We did. Midnight, flashlights, mud up to our knees. Robert turned the first shovelful. Ellie rode on his shoulders, waving a plastic hammer like a flag. The village thrives. Rosa's in trade school, paid for by the fund. Her cat had kittens. One lives with Mrs. Langford, renamed Muffin Jr. The oaks are taller than the cottages now, throwing shade where there used to be none. And the shop, still greasy, still loud, still smelling of pie on Tuesdays. Robert's crew is 20 strong. Jess manages the books and the daycare. Ellie's 3 speaks in complete sentences and can identify a 10mm wrench faster than her ABCs. Mrs. Langford turned 90 last month. We threw her a party in the community center. She wore the leopard slippers from the flood day. Robert gave a speech, short, no tears. Told her the only thing Arthur got right was planting that tree. She raised her root beer. To Eleanor, "Who taught us walls are for tearing down, and trees are for growing up?" I still wear the heart necklace, still bake apple pie, still tell the story. How $5,000 turned into a village, how a thief became a father, how a widow found a family in the people her husband tried to bury. The jars under the flagpole, the keys in the dirt. The oaks keep growing. Some debts you never finish paying. You just keep adding branches. Stick around. The saplings are just getting started. The fire started on a Tuesday, of course. I was rolling out crust for the weekly apple pie when the call came. Oak Haven's community center is burning. Robert's voice cracked over the phone. "Mom, get here, now." I left the dough on the counter, flour still clinging to my fingers like snow. Margaret was already in her car, engine running. We tore across town, past the diner, past the strip mall, past the life I thought we'd finally fixed. Smoke rose black and thick against a pale October sky. The community center, the one shaped like the old bakery, with its pink tiles and soda fountain, was a torch. Flames licked out the windows, curling like angry fingers. Sirens wailed. Kids stood on cottage porches in pajamas, eyes wide. Rosa clutched her cat, tears cutting clean lines through soot on her cheeks. Robert met us at the tape line, face streaked with ash, shirt half torn. "Electrical," he said. "Old wiring in the fountain, we think. Fire chief's inside." I grabbed his arm. "Ellie?" With Jess at the shop, safe. Mrs. Langford arrived next, oxygen tank rattling in a wheelchair pushed by Clara Jr. Her eyes, sharp even at 90, fixed on the fire like it owed her money. We watched in silence as the roof collapsed. Sparks danced into the oaks. One sapling caught, a tiny flame racing up the trunk. Robert started forward, but the firefighters held him back. Then Rosa did something no one expected. She ran to her cottage, came back with a garden hose, and started spraying the nearest tree. Kids followed. Buckets, pitchers, a toddler with a sippy cup. The fire crew let them. It wasn't enough to save the building, but it saved the oaks. By dawn, the center was a skeleton. Charred beams, melted chrome. The soda fountain, a twisted wreck. The fire chief, a woman with kind eyes and a clipboard, found us sitting on the curb, covered in ash and exhaustion. "Arson's ruled out," she said, "but the wiring was ancient. You'll need a full rebuild. Insurance will cover most, but, there's always a but." Mrs. Langford spoke first. "How much to start over?" $300 grand minimum. More if you want it better." She nodded once. "Done!" Robert started to protest. "We can't ask you," but she cut him off with a look that could stop a train. "I'm 90. Money's paper. This place is legacy." We held a town meeting that night in the shop. Every cottage resident, every apprentice, every kid who'd ever swung a hammer for the fund. The shop smelled of smoke and coffee. Ellie slept in a playpen, thumb in mouth, soot still on her eyelashes. Rosa stood up first. "We rebuild, but not the same, bigger, with a kitchen big enough for Nana Ellie's pies, and a stage, and a wall of windows so the Oaks can watch." Tommy added, "Solar panels, new wiring, no more surprises." Jess, holding the baby monitor like a microphone, said, "And a mural of the tree that started it all." The vote was unanimous. We'd rebuild, but first, we'd dig. Because under the flagpole, under the jar with the brass key and the acorns and the screws, was the next layer of Arthur's conscience. We waited for the fire inspector's clearance, then brought in a backhoe. Robert turned the first shovel by hand, same as the night we buried the jar. The crew formed a bucket brigade. Kids, apprentices, Mrs. Langford in her wheelchair with a silver trowel. At 3 feet down, metal clanged. A second box, larger, heavier, sealed with wax and padlocked with the brass keys twin. Inside, not money, not deeds, seeds, hundreds of packets, labeled in Arthur's handwriting, 45. Victory Garden 1950, bakery opening, 1965. For the grandchild I'll never meet. And one more, a single envelope addressed to the future. Robert opened it. "If you're reading this, the center burned. Good. Fire clears the rot. These seeds are from every place I ever wronged. Plant them. Let them outgrow my mistakes. The land is paid for in full. Deed in the shop safe. Box 217 again. Build something that feeds people, not egos. Tell Clara I finally learned." Mrs. Langford laughed until she coughed. "The man never could stop meddling. We planted the seeds that spring. In the ashes of the old center, in the cottage's gardens, along the new walking paths. Tomatoes from the Victory Garden, apple trees from the bakery opening, roses from Clara's wedding bouquet. The Oaks, saved by sippy cups and stubborn kids, threw shade over it all. The rebuild took a year. We did it right. Solar roof, commercial kitchen, stage with lights, a mural of the lightning-split oak painted by Mia. The soda fountain, rebuilt from scratch, pink tiles and all, but with a plaque, in memory of surprises. Opening day was bigger than the first. The governor came. So did the diner's old fry cook, now retired, who remembered Arthur sneaking free coffee in '52. Rosa sang, voice like gravel and honey, while Ellie danced in a tutu made from shop rags. Mrs. Langford cut the ribbon with the same garden shears. This time she added a speech. I spent 70 years thinking home was a building. Turns out it's a choice. You choose to stay when the fire comes. You choose to plant when the ground's still hot. You choose to open the door when the kid at the end of it has nothing but a duffel bag and a dream. She looked at me. Eleanor taught me that, and Arthur, finally, learned it too. That night, we held the first annual Oak Haven Harvest Festival. Pies on every table. Mine, Rosa's, even Mrs. Langford's. Store-bought, but we pretended. The apprentices played bluegrass on the stage. Ellie, now 4, led a conga line of foster kids around the fountain. Robert found me by the mural, watching the oaks sway in the breeze. Think we're done with surprises? He asked. I touched the heart necklace. Still there? Still shining? Hope not. Surprises are just stories that haven't finished telling themselves. He smiled, the kind that reaches the eyes. Then let's keep listening. The village grows. Rosa's engaged to a firefighter who helps save the trees. Tommy and Jess have a second on the way. Another Ellie if it's a girl. Arthur if it's a boy. We're still negotiating. The Second Chance Fund has satellites in 3 states. Mrs. Langford teaches checkbook math to kids who think money grows on trees. She shows them the oaks and says, "Close enough." And the jar? We left it where it was. Added a new one on top. Glass, clear, filled with ashes from the fire, and a single seed from the victory garden. Labeled, "For the next fire," because some things burn, so the light can get in. The $5 is still framed in the shop. Below it, a new plaque. We didn't save the building, we saved the choice to rebuild. I still bake on Tuesday. The pies feed the village, the shop, the soul. The oaks are taller than the cottages now. Roots tangled under the flagpole, holding the jar, holding the story. Some debts you never finish paying. Some homes you never finish building. Some families you never finish finding. The circle keeps widening. The pie's still warm. The door's always open. Stick around. The next kid's already walking up the path with a duffel bag and a dream. The morning Mrs. Langford died, the oaks dropped every single leaf at once. It was October again. The sky the color of a nickel, and I was walking across the village with a pie in each hand. One for the daycare, one for her apartment. The wind came out of nowhere, sharp and sweet, and the leaves let go like they'd been waiting for permission. They rained down in slow motion, gold and red and perfect, covering the paths, the porches, the brand new roof of the rebuilt community center. I knew before I reached her door. Clara Jr. met me on the steps. She didn't cry. She just took the pies, set them on the railing, and hugged me so hard my curlers shifted. She waited for the leaves. Clara said, "Told the nurse last night. When the oaks let go, I'm ready." Inside, Mrs. Langford looked smaller than ever in her leopard slippers and silk robe, hands folded over the locket that held Evelyn's baby curl. On the nightstand sat the brass key, polished bright, and a single envelope addressed in her shaky handwriting. To the family I found late. We read it together after the coroner left. Robert, Jess, Tommy, Rosa, Clara Jr., Mia, Ellie on my hip. The whole village crowded into that tiny apartment like it was a church. Dear every last one of you. I was 91 years, 5 months, and 12 days old. I spent the first 70 thinking home was something you bought. I spent the last 21 learning it's something you give away. The lawyers have the boring papers. This is the good part. Everything left. House money, mall money, the coin jars, the war bonds, the stupid strip mall parking lot nobody wanted. Goes into the second chance fund. One rule. Every kid who gets a cottage has to plant something that outlives them. Tree, garden, song, whatever. The Oaks already know the plan. Eleanor, you were the daughter I never had, and the mother I needed. Keep the heart necklace. Keep the pie recipe. Keep the door open. Robert, you turned my husband's regrets into your children's future. Be proud, be loud, be gentle. To the rest of you little heathens, stop growing so fast. I'll be in the wind that shakes the leaves. When you hear it, wave. Love, Clara, Mrs. Langford. Langford P.S. The leopard slippers go to Ellie. She'll need them when she's boss of the world. We buried her 3 days later under the tallest oak. The one the kids saved with sippy cups. No casket, just a pine box Robert built himself. We lowered it with ropes made from shop towels. Ellie, now 4.5, insisted on wearing the leopard slippers. They came to her knees. Rosa sang. Tommy played guitar. Margaret read a psalm. Clara Jr. scattered rose petals from the seeds Arthur hid in the ashes. Then Robert did something nobody expected. He stepped forward with the brass key. The one from the tree. The one from the jar. The one Mrs. Langford kept on her nightstand till the end. I think this belongs here, he said, and pressed it into the dirt at the base of the oak. The kids understood first. One by one they came forward. Rosa, Mia, the apprentices, the foster kids who'd never had a grave to visit, and added something small. A wrench, a pie, server, a silver dollar Ellie's, plastic hammer, a burnt marshmallow from the first bonfire after the fire. When they were done, the roots looked like they were holding a treasure chest. That night we held the biggest pie party Oak Haven had ever seen. Every surface in the community center was covered. Apple, cherry, pumpkin, pecan, key lime from Clara Jr. The ovens ran nonstop. The soda fountain poured root beer floats until the syrup ran dry. At midnight, Robert climbed on a table, same way he did at Tommy's wedding, and raised a glass. To Mrs. Langford, to Arthur, who finally got it right, to every kid who thought they were the end of their story. You're not. You're the middle, and the middle keeps going. Ellie tugged my sleeve. Nana, when do we open the next box? I looked at the oak, leaves already growing back greener than before, and smiled. Whenever the wind sounds like leopard slippers. The village is quiet now, but not empty. Rosa runs the community center. Tommy and Jess have 3 kids, all with red hair and opinions. Robert teaches welding on Tuesdays and pie making on Thursdays. Margaret finally admitted she likes store-bought cookies. Clara, Junior and Mia come every fall for the harvest. Festival, the Second Chance Fund, has built 6 more villages in 4 states. Every one has an oak. Every oak has a key buried at its roots. And every Tuesday, no matter where I am, I bake apple pie. I leave one on Mrs. Langford's grave. One at the shop, one under the oak that started it all. The crust is always perfect. The wind always shakes the leaves. And somewhere, a kid with a duffel bag and a dream walks up the path, sees the open door, smells the pie, and knows, without anyone saying a word, that this is home. The $5,000 is still on the wall in the shop, faded now, framed with every key we ever found. Below it, the final plaque, started with $5,000, ended with a forest. Keep planting! I'm 79 next birthday. The heart necklace still hangs around my neck. The leopard slippers are in Ellie's closet, waiting for the day she's tall enough. And every time the oaks drop their leaves, I wave, because some stories don't end. They just grow rings. The pie's still warm, the door's still open. Come on in.